He says he doesn't feel safe. He doesn't feel safe bringing his family here if he doesn't have the security.
Yeah, and I would feel exactly the same as well. I think people forget and they kind of conflate, you know, between Harry, the person in the royal family, as a private family, and then Harry, the prince. And at the end of the day, he was born into this. He didn't ask to be born.
No, but he has to get out.
And he has to get out. Yeah, he has to get out.
And he got out.
No, Mike, you're acting as if Harry is asking for lunch money or something from the king. He's not.
No,
he doesn't get anything.
Privilege.
No, what he's asking
He gave away the privilege of being in the royal family. Now he wants the privilege.
He was born into that, though. He doesn't have a choice.
But he didn't want to be in it anymore.
Taken a step back.
He wanted to get out.
Line to the throne, though,
and by the way, if he comes to this country, he will be given the same protection as anybody else in this country, and if he goes anywhere near another member of the royal family, he will be protected. What he wants is...
Mike, Harry, Al-Qaeda have asked for Harry's murder.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised after he printed a book saying he topped 25
This is about the risk.
Al-Qaeda people.
He also is an ex-person in the military, right?
Yeah.
And also he's a royal that was born into it, like we've just said.
Yeah.
And also, even when Meghan was living here, she had white substances, suspicious substances sent to her with a racist message. There's always been the risk there. Just because he's not a working royal does not mean that the risk just all of a sudden evaporates.
What Harry wants is, he wants a Land Rover front and back, blue flashing lights, motorcycle outriders, armour-proof cars. That's all he wants. He can come to this country. He's got enough money privately. He can hire his own plane. He can come to this country. He can land.
And by the way,
he doesn't have to go public.
I'm glad you said that, Mike, because he has actually offered to pay for this security. And this is why I think that all of this is so incredibly petty.
No.
And it makes the royal family and also this country look very petty.
He wanted to pay
for one trip.
He's concerned that if he brought his own security detail over, they don't get access to all of the security services information.
Yeah, and they can't carry guns. You're absolutely right. But what I'm saying is that his desire to come back now is, in my view, connected to re-commercialising who he and Meghan are. That's why I think he's doing it.
He said he wanted to bring the grandchildren to see his father, though.
Hello, family. And after watching that debate, one thing became crystal clear. The conversation about Prince Harry's security has never really been about flashing blue lights, motorcades, or royal privilege. It has become a debate about whether people are willing to acknowledge reality or whether they would rather reduce an incredibly serious issue to a political talking point. Because listening to that exchange, I couldn't help noticing something. Every time Harry's security concerns were raised, one side kept bringing the discussion back to one sentence: he chose to leave. As though those 3 words magically erase everything else. As though choosing to step away from a working role somehow wipes away decades of public exposure. As though terrorist threats suddenly disappear because somebody changes jobs. As though the world looks at Prince Harry and says, well, he isn't a working royal anymore, so let's forget who he is. That simply isn't how reality works. Joanna Jarjue understood that. She kept bringing the discussion back to something much more important than palace politics. The actual risk. And honestly, that's exactly where this conversation should begin. Because somewhere along the way, people stopped asking one very simple question. Is Prince Harry genuinely at risk? Not whether you like him, not whether you agree with his decisions, not whether you think he should have stayed in the royal family. Just one straightforward question. Is the risk real? The answer is yes. Even people who criticize Harry rarely deny that he remains one of the most recognizable people on the planet. He served in Afghanistan. His military service has been public knowledge for years. He has spoken openly about receiving threats. There have been documented extremist threats against him. His wife experienced racist abuse throughout her time in Britain. Whether someone supports Harry or not doesn't change those facts. And that's where Joanna made perhaps the strongest point in the entire debate. Harry was born into this. Nobody asks to be born into one of the most famous families in the world. Nobody chooses to spend their entire childhood surrounded by cameras. Nobody chooses to become internationally recognizable before they can even speak. Harry didn't apply for that position. He inherited it the moment he was born. That's the difference that so many critics deliberately ignore. Leaving a job is one thing, leaving worldwide recognition is impossible. Mike Perry kept repeating that Harry chose to get out. But let's think about that for a second. Did Harry stop being Prince Harry? No. Did millions of people suddenly stop recognizing him? No. Did newspapers stop writing about him? Absolutely not. In fact, if anything, the attention became even more intense. Every move, every speech, every interview, every charity visit, every family decision, every rumor, everything becomes international news. So how exactly does someone escape the security risks attached to that level of visibility? They don't. That's why reducing this entire issue to "he left" completely misses the point. Joanna also pushed back against another argument that has been repeated endlessly. If Harry wants security, he can just pay for it. That sounds reasonable until you understand what Harry has actually argued. This has never simply been about hiring bodyguards. Private security can be excellent, but private security is not the Metropolitan Police. Private security cannot access official threat intelligence. Private security cannot simply replace the capabilities available through specialist police protection. Those are fundamentally different systems. That distinction matters, and it has always mattered. That's why Harry's legal challenges have focused on the decision-making process surrounding his security arrangements rather than simply demanding luxury treatment. Now, whether people agree with every legal argument is another discussion entirely, but pretending this is just about hiring a few extra guards completely oversimplifies the issue. Joanna pointed that out beautifully. She reminded viewers that Harry even offered to pay for certain protection. That alone should have changed the tone of the conversation. Because if someone is willing to cover the costs, then perhaps the issue isn't entitlement. Perhaps the issue is capability, and that's a very different discussion. Another moment that really stood out came when Joanna mentioned Meghan. Sometimes people act as though the security debate exists in isolation from the rest of Harry's family. It doesn't. Harry has repeatedly explained that his greatest concern is bringing Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet to Britain safely. Notice the pattern. Whenever Harry speaks publicly about this issue, he almost always frames it around his family, his wife, his son, his daughter. That's what fathers do. They worry about their children. Whether you're a prince, a plumber, a teacher, or a taxi driver, protecting your family isn't a luxury, it's instinct. And yet somehow, whenever Prince Harry says exactly that, some critics immediately interpret it as manipulation. Why? Would those same people criticize any other father for putting his children's safety first? I doubt it. Then there was another claim made during the debate, that Harry wants royal treatment. Again, this sounds persuasive until you actually think about what is being discussed. Protection is not the same thing as privilege. Those words are not interchangeable. Privilege is receiving something because of status. Protection is responding to an identified security risk. Those are completely different concepts. If someone faces heightened threats because of who they are, responding to those threats isn't automatically about rewarding status. It's about managing risk. And that's the conversation that often gets lost. Something else deserves attention. Mike suggested Harry's desire to return is connected to commercial interests. People are free to hold opinions, but opinions are not evidence. Harry himself has consistently said he wants his children to know Britain and to spend time with members of his family when it can be done safely. Whether critics believe him is their choice, but it's important to distinguish between publicly stated reasons and speculation about hidden motives. If we're going to have an honest conversation, we should at least start from what people have actually said, not what we assume they secretly mean. There's also a strange contradiction that keeps appearing in discussions about Harry. Some commentators insist he is irrelevant. Then those very same commentators spend hours discussing him every single week. Which is it? Because if Harry were truly irrelevant, television producers wouldn't keep booking debates about him. Newspapers wouldn't dedicate endless headlines to him. Social media wouldn't explode every time he visits Britain. The reality is obvious. Harry remains one of the most recognizable public figures in the world. That level of attention brings opportunities. It also brings risks. Ignoring one while talking endlessly about the other doesn't make much sense. One thing Joanna did particularly well was refusing to reduce Harry to a caricature. Too often, discussions become trapped inside slogans. He left, he wants privilege, he's complaining. But human lives aren't slogans. Security planning certainly isn't. Threat assessments aren't. Families aren't. Real life is more complicated than television sound bites. Another thing that often gets overlooked is the emotional side of this entire situation. Imagine wanting your children to know the country where you grew up. Imagine wanting them to meet relatives. Imagine wanting them to experience places that shaped your own childhood. Then imagine constantly calculating whether the risks are acceptable. That isn't a position most parents would envy. Whether someone supports Harry or not, it's difficult to deny that these are serious considerations. This is also where history matters. Harry has spoken openly for years about how the loss of his mother shaped his views on security and media attention. People can disagree with his conclusions, they can disagree with his decisions, but dismissing those experiences altogether ignores an important part of why he approaches risk the way he does. His perspective didn't appear out of nowhere. It was shaped by events that the entire world witnessed. That's context, not an excuse. Context. And context matters. One of the most frustrating parts of this debate is watching complex issues become entertainment. Television thrives on conflict. One person says black, another says white, everyone interrupts, someone raises their voice, the audience claps, then the program moves on. But Harry still has to make real decisions about real travel plans. Those decisions affect Meghan, they affect Archie, they affect Lilibet. Those consequences continue long after the television lights switch off. That's why I appreciated Joanna's intervention. She refused to let the discussion drift away from reality. She kept returning to the actual question, what is the level of risk? Because that's ultimately where any responsible conversation should begin, not with whether someone approves of Harry, not with whether someone dislikes Meghan, not with old grievances. Risk, evidence, security, family. Those are the issues that deserve serious discussion. As supporters of Harry, we don't have to pretend every decision he has made is beyond criticism. No public figure is. But we also shouldn't accept narratives that oversimplify his concerns or dismiss them out of hand. The security debate is one of the few issues where the stakes are literally about safety. That deserves better than lazy talking points. At the end of the day, Harry isn't asking people to like him. He's asking that the risks surrounding his family's visits be taken seriously. People may disagree about the legal mechanisms, they may disagree about funding, they may disagree about policy. Those are legitimate debates. But reducing everything to "he left, so that's the end of it" ignores the realities of who Harry is, the threats that have been discussed publicly, and the responsibilities that come with protecting a young family. Watching that exchange reminded me that sometimes one calm voice can cut through a lot of noise. Joanna Jarjue didn't need to shout. She simply kept bringing everyone back to the central issue. Risk does not disappear because someone resigns from a role. Fame does not disappear because someone moves abroad. Threats do not disappear because critics wish they would. And a father's instinct to protect his wife and children certainly doesn't disappear because some television commentator thinks it shouldn't matter. That is why this debate continues. Not because Harry wants privilege, but because the conversation has never truly been about privilege. It has always been about whether people are prepared to acknowledge that protecting a family and recognizing genuine security concerns are not signs of weakness. They are signs of responsibility. If this debate accomplished anything, it reminded us that facts and context still matter, even in the middle of a fiery television argument. And for many people watching, Joanna's insistence on focusing on the actual risks rather than reducing everything to a slogan was the strongest contribution of the entire discussion. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.